A mysterious shadow fell over the Pit News when I was a writer there. It makes sense now. The Soviet Union still existed. And it's clear that the Pit Veterans Administration was working with the Russians through Mellenbeck in pulling off the shadow heist of Lenin's Houdini. And of course, McCartney and Yoko Ono moved into play against what was in my articles. As though I was a Manchurian candidate who was spinning a justification for what they claim was the murder of John Lennon. And they used a crystal ball to summon these swamis from Carnegie Mellon University's border police, border patrol, the MK Ultra people, the people manufacturing LSD at Mellon Institute with the Israeli army and torturing children in the East End. And what had the shadow was sort of the creature from the id. The Forbidden Planet has this guy who's trying to lock himself away from the creature from the id, but it's coming from inside of him, so steel doors won't stop it. It melts, comes through to him. And this is the idea that John Lennon was the MK Ultra, but he was a subconscious Manchurian candidate of the MK Ultra, or something like this. Something like, you're impugning the holy Taliban of the New York homeless whale's tail crowd. And it took me a while to figure out what they were actually brokering in the shadows. That they made secret tapes for secret punishment. They get into my computer and look at ways of patchworking public opprobrium about pornography and things, really stupid things that they make. Then they can use to muddle up as a filibuster, facing the fact that they tortured me and slaved me for 50 years. Impugning my work history is really a dour thing for them to do. I mean, I was working 2 full-time dishwashing jobs just to keep up with the income of my waitress girlfriend who could have tips. I mean, gay men can come in as waiters and make tips, and they never for a minute considered sharing them with me, for a minute. I had to work 2 full-time dishwashing jobs to keep up with them because I'm deaf. No, the idea of calling any of them peers just because their girlfriends were sleeping with me or something is ridiculous. And I think I figured out what it is. And McCartney tosses and turns like Gerald Ford. What's the score? During a national security crisis. What's the score? He can't sleep. It's that he feels accused by Save the Children. Save the Children has identified 7 critical types of protections children require in disaster areas and war zones. Now, the rabbit herself called East End District, Eastminster a war zone. That's certainly what it was. Protection from physical harm, deafening a child, pedophiling a child, threatening to burn down a coffin-like structure that he was hiding in. They're saying top shelf, and then not like Anne Frank when he crawls into the top shelf of a towel closet. Pumping murderous drugs into the system, forcing him to use inhalants while on an LSD trip, putting a nerve agent in his mouth, beating his brains in, dragging him through glass. This was before I turned 14 years old. Protection from physical harm. Yet Paul McCartney calls them the family of love. And I'm the hater. Evan Nauer said that I was the hater. And this is what Carnegie Mellon did with Yoko Ono. In the gap between what they wanted to say about me and what they had to work with. Because nobody believed I would have ever heard John Lennon. But by saying I was not like him, they were saying I was like him. They were accusing me of trying to be like him by saying I wasn't like him. And they had the army director for Afghanistan for Obama saying things like, oh, he knows that you don't snort acid, therefore he must be a hippie. So it doesn't, you can't force logic into the mindset of supernatural weirdos from Mellon Bank or anywhere else, Temple University. It doesn't work. Hegseth thinks that Christianity is a missile system. That's what he thinks it is. So protection from exploitation and gender-based violence. So making tapes in Butler, PA of me in trauma being used in a pedophile situation by full-grown adults who have battered me isn't exploitation, because John Lennon would have done that to you. Is what they're thinking, and McCartney's tossing and turning. What's the score? Gender-based violence. They called me queerball. They called me queerbot. UW Dialectical has made efforts to coerce me into homosexuality. Sick attitudes through and through. Protection from psychosocial distress. Where do you begin with a scholar school child deafened and then kidnapped and stolen cars by murderers who gas him and beat his brains in and chase him into the snow far away from home where he doesn't even know where he is, half conscious, to find his way back, freezing. Psychosocial distress. They say no. That's the family of love, queerball, and you are betraying the family of love, and you are betraying the spirit of John Lennon. Ronald Reagan has blessed them. Protection from recruitment into armed groups. Well, which armed group didn't try to recruit me? They have people bragging of their lead pipes, exhibiting pistols. Ian Wadmaker, the Zionist, had a pistol. They had a Jewish kid who was firing at black kids out of his window and pointing it at. They had race kids pointing rifles at me directly in my head. Did the black people ever have weapons? I don't remember ever really being beaten up or brutalized by the black people. I was used by them in a psychosocial showdown because of the power structure. But they were often very nice to me. In fact, 2 black kids rescued me. Gang who saw me as a race traitor. They were kicking me in the head, throwing me against glass. And then 2 black kids came out of the pizza shop and chased them off. They could have been killed for it. They're very brave, heroic black people. And I was accused by UW Dialectical of trying to subvert the narrative that way. All I was doing was recounting the situation. And I'm trying to take a union man's narrative. You take a union man's narrative and it ain't going to sit too well with them. Protection from family separation. Well, how many times did I cry on the bus in Seattle? Now, admittedly, I was not a child anymore. About never being able to see Jeannie because of the hoodwinkers lobby that Capitol Hill, Seattle has worked out with John Schulman and Mellon back in Pittsburgh, who chased me into 2 years of homelessness and then refused to allow me to go to school for 12 years. Now they did things like poison me in the mouth and rip or murder a girl over a Union Man stop or a penny at the post office. That's the reality of Seattle's Thankology. And Paul McCartney, what's the score? Tossing like Gerald Ford in his bed. How many times did I cry on the bus that I hadn't seen Jeannie for years and years and years? You know, I sat stupid in the bleachers cheering Ichiro, who just wanted to kill me, to bring the coonskin home for Yoko Ono. Protection from abuse related to forced displacement. What do you call being kidnapped over state lines overnight by strangers? And when the police stopped the car, they could even smell the neurotoxins. And they didn't even look at me cowering in the back seat as a traumatized 13-year-old who didn't even weigh 100 pounds. Protection from denial of children's access to quality education. That's a lot. Jeannie has Down syndrome. She is an honest person. And she just said what liars all of these people are and taught me sign language so I could go back to school. When? In my 50s. I was a governor's school scholar. My father was considered a hero by the regional director of Amnesty International. He was a school bus driver and chair of the Department of Education at the University of Pittsburgh. I was born a week after Bill Mazeroski's famous home run and loved him and played second base in Little League. My sister was waved to by Roberto Clemente. I was there. I remember. It made him happy. She made him smile, and he waved to her. Now, there was a moment of family of love in this stuff. But they denied me sign language. All through high school. While they ran off to Harvard, they ran off to Swarthmore, they went off to Princeton, they went off to Yale. Where didn't they get to go to school? They went to Kenyon, Williams and Mary, Brown, Colgate, Pitt, CMU, and they didn't even teach me sign language. Protection from denial of children's access to quality education. And Paul McCartney thinks that I'm accusing him of inciting Ralph Karsh to bring marijuana over to give to my sister and taunt me into trying when I was 10 years old. He's tossing and turning. What's the score? Save the Children has said the protection from the Beatles is identified as the 8th critical type children required disaster areas and war zones.